All right, let's talk about one of the biggest things happening in tech right now. I mean, it's a huge shift. We're talking about how AI is completely changing the game for software development. It's no longer just a little helper, it's becoming a full-blown teammate. And this is a revolution. Seriously, it's changing the very way our digital world gets built. So, to get a handle on all this, we're going to climb what I'm calling the ladder of AI autonomy. Think of it like levels in a game. We'll start at the bottom, with the basic stuff. Then we'll get into this really interesting debate between vibes and blueprints. After that, we hit the top level, the autonomous coders. And finally, we'll take a look around and ask, okay, what's next? But first, let me just throw this out there. What if building the next big thing, the next great app, was as simple as you just describing your idea? I mean, really think about that. That's the dream, right? That's the promise driving this whole revolution. And we're going to dig into just how close we are to making that a reality. Okay, so let's dive in. Software is, it's literally everywhere, right? It runs our phones, our cars, our entire economy. But here's the thing. Building it has always been really, really hard. It's complex, it's slow, and honestly, it can be super frustrating. And that's the problem AI is jumping in to solve. And believe me, the ways it's doing it are pretty mind-blowing. So let's stick with this latter idea as our guide. It's super helpful. Every rung we climb up is another step towards more AI independence. It's how we're going to make sense of where things like GitHub Copilot fit in versus these newer, crazier ideas like AI agents. We're literally watching the journey from a simple helper to a system you can delegate the whole job to. All right, let's get started. We're on the first rung of the ladder. This is probably the one you've heard of, maybe even used. It's the AI pair programmer. The idea is simple. The AI is like your copilot, sitting right there in the cockpit with you, or, in your code editor, ready to lend a hand. So, the fancy term for this is AI-assisted coding. But honestly, just think of it like autocomplete on steroids. It's this tool that lives right inside a developer's workspace, and it's constantly suggesting the next line of code or even whole chunks of it. It can answer quick questions too. This is hands down the most common way developers are using AI right now. And we're not talking about some niche thing. The scale here is just staggering. Take GitHub Copilot. It's being used by more than 50,000 organizations. And get this, it's suggesting over 30% of all new code on GitHub. Just let that sink in. Then you've got other big players like the JetBrains AI assistant for folks who use Java and Amazon's Code Whisperer for anyone building in the AWS world. So yeah, this isn't some what-if scenario. This is the reality today. And this shift is so big, it's changing how people even think about these tools. I love this quote from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. He said, "It's no longer your pair programmer, it's your peer programmer." That tiny change from pair to peer is everything. It perfectly captures this move from just a tool to a real collaborator. Okay, let's climb up to the next rung. This is where things get really, really interesting because now we have to ask a huge question. How do talk to the AI? How do you tell it what you want it to build? And it turns out there are two totally different schools of thought on this. Yeah, it pretty much boils down to this. Option one, you have a creative, kind of free-flowing conversation with the AI, back and forth. Option two, you hand it a super detailed, formal blueprint and basically say, here, go build this. Two completely different ways of working. Let's dig in. And that brings us to these two camps. Over here, you've got vibe coding. The best way to think about this is like you're talking to a painter. You're describing the mood, the feeling, the vibe you want. It's super fast, it's creative, and it's awesome for just trying stuff out. Then, on the other side, you have spec-driven development. This is more like giving an architect a precise blueprint. Every detail is mapped out. It's all about reliability, and it's what you'd use for the really big, important projects. So let's talk a bit more about vibe coding. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's this back-and-forth conversation where a developer just uses plain English to guide the AI. The whole point is speed and trying things out. The mindset is totally code first, ask questions later. It's perfect for when you just want to quickly build a prototype and see, if your idea is any good. There's this quote from computer scientist Andrej Karpathy that just perfectly captures the wild energy of this. He said, "I accept all always, I don't read the diffs anymore. When I get error messages, I just copy-paste them in with no comment. Usually that fixes it." Now that sounds a little chaotic, right? Maybe even a bit reckless. But it perfectly describes that fast, almost intuitive trust fall you do with the AI when you're vibe coding. But what if you can't afford that kind of chaos? What if you're building something that absolutely has to work? Well, that's where spec-driven development comes in. This is the complete opposite. It's a super structured process where the very first thing you do is work with the AI to create a detailed plan, a spec. Not a single line of code gets written until that plan is perfect. The whole goal here is to get rid of all the guesswork and build something rock solid. And there's a clear 4-step recipe for this. First, you specify. You basically tell the AI what you want to build and why. Then, step 2, plan. The AI comes back with a technical blueprint, how it's going to build it. Step 3 is tasks. You break that big plan down into tiny, manageable chunks. And only then, after all that planning, do you get to step 4, implement, where the AI finally starts writing the code based on that exact plan. And this isn't just some theory, by the way. There are real tools out there making this happen. A great example is GitHub Spec Kit. It lets a developer use these simple little / commands in their chat window, like /specify or /plan or /implement, to literally walk the AI through this whole structured process. It's a really cool way to turn a fuzzy idea into a solid piece of software. All right, time to climb to the very top of the ladder. This is the final level. And up here, we're not just helping the AI anymore. We're not even just giving it a plan. Here, we're delegating the entire job to an autonomous agent and basically saying, you got this, go figure it out. And this is where we meet the AI agent. So what is an agent? It's a system that can take a big, high-level goal from you, come up with its own plan to achieve it, and then go out and actually do it, using tools like a web browser or a code terminal all by itself. The analogy is perfect. It's just like hiring a freelance developer. You give them the project brief and they handle the rest. So how do these things work? Well, it's all based on a really simple but powerful loop. Understand, think, act. It's a cycle. First, it understands what you want. Then it thinks. It processes everything and makes a plan. And finally, it acts. It uses its tools to carry out the plan, and it's constantly learning and adjusting as it goes. Simple, right? But incredibly effective. But okay, what if the job is too big for just one agent? Well, that's when you start building a team. You coordinate a bunch of different specialized agents to work together. And that, my friends, is what we call an agentic workflow. The biggest difference between a single agent and a whole workflow really comes down to one word: visibility. A single agent can sometimes feel like a black box. It does its thing, but it's hard to see how it's thinking. An agentic workflow is the opposite. It's broken down into steps, it's modular, it's traceable. You can see exactly what each agent is doing, which is absolutely crucial when you need to find a bug or just understand what's going on. So there you have it. We've climbed the whole ladder, from a simple autocomplete all the way up to these autonomous teams of AI agents. Pretty wild journey, right? So now let's just take a second, look at the view from up here, and try to figure out what it all means. Let's just put it all together in a nutshell. At the bottom, you have AI-assisted coding. Great for day-to-day work, but pretty limited. Then you have vibe coding. Super fast for ideas, but yeah, it can get messy. Spec-driven dev is your go-to for big, serious apps, but you gotta put in the planning time up front. And at the very top, autonomous agents can take on whole projects, but you definitely still need a human keeping an eye on things. See? Every single rung on the ladder has its pros and cons. And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. We've watched AI go from being a glorified spell checker for code to a pure programmer, and now to an autonomous teammate. So I'll leave you with this. What happens to human creativity, to innovation, to the very idea of what it means to build something when our primary tool becomes a true collaborator?